Welcome to Writer Talks. I'm Elizabeth Ann Atkins, and this is the show where you get to meet the winners of our monthly short story contests who are published in our international anthologies of writers. So tonight you are in for a treat because we have the writer Richard Zaric coming to us live from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. And he is a very prolific writer and he has lots of insights to share with you this evening. So it's my honor to welcome you to Writer Talks. Richard, welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you
You're
very much.
welcome. You're
Thank you.
welcome. So we know of you because your story, same time tomorrow, your short story won our contest, and it's going to be in one of our upcoming anthologies with a whole new cover design and everything. So we're very proud to showcase your work to writers and readers everywhere. So you also are the author of the novel Hiding Scars. Do you have it there with you?
Yes, I do, right here, actually.
Awesome. Beautiful cover. I just love it. And so, can you talk about your writing, Richard? Because that book is phenomenal in that it has an echo from the past that has contemporary resonance.
Yeah, well, it's a historical fiction novel that takes place between 1913 and 1919, and in Winnipeg. And of course, during that time, there was a lot of social upheaval that was taking place. You had World War One. I was right in the middle of that. Near the end of the war, towards the end, of course, the Spanish flu hit, and obviously that has a lot of meaning today. When I
Right.
wrote it, of course, I never thought that there would be another pandemic, so it's
Uh-huh.
the timing is a little impeccable, of course. And there's a
Yeah.
lot of other things. You know, the Titanic sank, 1912, so just a few years before that. Prohibition in Canada, at least, occurred during that time. So there's a few things that were happening. So it was very easy to plop, put characters in, and just go watch them go and see what happens. So yeah, it was
Uh-huh.
a lot of fun. The research was difficult. There's a lot of if you're writing historical fiction, you want to obviously gain as much information as possible and make sure that you're presenting something that is viewed as authentic.
Right. Oh my goodness. When I saw that it touches on the Spanish flu pandemic, and here we are in the coronavirus pandemic 100 years later, I was like, what? And it was published in 2018. So that's kind of prophetic.
Yeah, there you go.
hmm So it's fascinating, Richard. You were telling me about how your book was initially 250,000 words and you had to pare it down. So can you share what that was like?
Sure. Well, I guess when I first put the book together, what I did is developed different scenes, and I just kept adding scenes. There was a big story I had to tell. There were so many things going on, and what I do is, okay, I'm going to write this chapter, this scene, and I just kept doing it until I was complete. And I thought, okay, well, now the story is complete. Well, it added up to 250,000 words. And when you're a new writer, someone that's never published a book before, that's a really hard sell. A publisher, just the paper alone is going to cost a lot of money to print. So I actually hired a structural editor that went through my novel and offered some obviously great advice on where I can cut corners, subplots that I had to reconsider. Even I had so many different voices. It was like a J.R.R. Martin book almost with so many voices. I cut it down to two, the two main characters, and it made total sense.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay,
it got down
fascinating.
to, I think, about 145 or 140,000 words is the final finished
Okay.
product.
Excellent, excellent. And when you launched it in 2018, how fun. I saw pictures on your website. It looks like you were having a ball.
It was a lot of fun. We had the launch at McNally Robinson, which is probably the biggest and best bookstore in the city. Uh, and basically, I invited all my friends, people from work, anyone that knew me, basically, to come out for the launch. And basically, it involves a reading, and I tried to do a little comedy sketch, David Letterman type thing, just to lighten things up, and so I didn't seem as nervous either. And it includes a
Uh-huh.
signing, of course, and it was just a lot of fun, just meeting everyone. And I always think, usually when you meet all your friends come together, it's usually like your funeral or something, maybe a wedding. It's nice to actually have all of these different people together at an event that's not a bad event. It's actually good.
Yes, I love it. I love love it. I love it. So, can you talk about, was this your lifelong dream to have a novel published and celebrated by your friends, family, and readers?
I would say so. I know that as a child, or when I was in school, grade school,
Mm-hmm.
I always thought, I was into creative writing and writing stories, and I always thought, it'd be great to have to write a book or something to that effect. And when the idea for Hiding Scars came to be, it was almost like a light bulb went off. I can do this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I really had to learn from the ground up how to write, how to structure a novel, the do's and don'ts, everything right from
Mm-hmm.
the start. So it was a great learning process. And of course, now that there's a second novel and hopefully more to follow, it just gets easier each time. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was a journey.
I love it. I love it. And I love how you draw some of your inspiration from comic books, and you've got the Hulk and Wolverine and Captain America and Star Wars behind you. That is so cool. And your
Yeah, well,
collection.
comic book collecting, that's a passion of mine also. And that's actually going to be a theme, one of the central themes of my second novel,
Hmm.
which is going to be called Stealing Amazing Fantasy number 15. And for those
Ooh.
that don't know, Amazing Fantasy number 15 happens to be the first appearance of Spider-Man, iconic character.
Oh.
And the basic premise of the second novel is that there's a young boy. He suffers from mental illness. He suffers from kleptomania, and he discovers that his father is dying of cancer. And his father is this avid comic book collector that has every single Spider-Man comic except the first appearance, Amazing Fantasy 15. So the son decides, I'm going to get that from my father before he dies. The only way I know how. I'm going to steal it. So it's a bit of a caper story, and it's about there's a lot of growing up involved because, of course, stealing wrong. So there's a lot of healing, mental healing that takes place, and
Mhm.
growing. So yeah, it's just waiting for you know, chopping it out at the moment, basically.
Oh, fascinating. Well, I wish you the best of luck with that. Where can people buy your first book?
My first book is you could get it through Amazon.com, Amazon CA up in Canada.
Hmm.
Sans Press is the publisher. You can go straight to the publisher's website, and you could actually go to any bookstore and order it. It's
Mm.
available in the United States, anywhere in the world. Basically, it's
Hmm.
distributed internationally. So
Oh,
just
great.
go to the bookstore, say, I'd like to get Hiding Scars by Richard Zaric, and they'll get it for you.
Awesome. Excellent. So, Richard, let's talk about writing. Have you always wanted to be a writer, and what's your process?
Uh, yeah, I'd say I've always had. It's something I've always appreciated. When I was in high school, I enjoyed creative writing. I won an award in high school for creative writing. I stopped creative writing soon after graduating university, and I entered into business field, basically marketing research, and I was
Hmm.
doing more technical writing. But something in the back of my mind was always saying, you know what, I really like creating stories. I like drawing from my own past, nonfiction as well. I like infusing things in my life that have occurred into fiction type stories. Some experiences, that sort of thing. So it's something that I've always wanted to do, and it's probably in the last 10 or 15 years where I've been a lot more serious about it and dedicated more time to it. Now, as far as the
Hmm.
craft of writing goes, what I do is I devote an hour a day to writing. Now, that
Wow.
could mean actual writing, right?
Uh-huh.
And if I'm doing actual writing, um, 600 words. If I get 600 words down, to me that's a good day. I've done okay, and I'm fine with that. It also includes editing. I count that research, a meeting with my writing group. As long as it works out to about an hour a day, averages out. I devote that time to that.
I love it. That is awesome. So do you do it like in the morning or evening, or you have a career in business, so how do you balance that?
Uh, well, I get up at 5 in the morning, and usually I do it in the morning. I find that's when my creative juices are flowing the best.
Mm-hmm.
and the house is quiet and I'm just able to rattle things off. Sometimes it's in the evening. On the weekends, it might be in the afternoon. In the past, I would say I was exclusively doing it in the morning. I would say since then, I've learned to whatever chance I can get, I write because
Okay.
sometimes the day goes by and it's like, wow, I haven't done anything yet today. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Right.
better in the morning,
Yes.
but you know, whatever you can get, you get it.
I love it. That's a tremendous model that you're sharing with other writers who have full-time jobs because getting that writing in is sometimes a real challenge and monitoring your energy level too. Because if you sit down and write and you're exhausted, nothing's going to happen. So knowing your rhythm is really important.
Oh, definitely. But even still, on some of those tough days, I think it's important to slug through. Even if you're just taking notes for an upcoming short story you're thinking about, do it. Research something,
Hmm.
anything, do something. You never know when your inspiration will come when you have a great idea or you think about a great character or whatever.
Right, right. So what keeps you going? Why do you do this?
I don't know. I think I just like doing it. I like the idea of getting my words out there and telling a story and, people reading it and appreciating it. Um,
Hmm.
I'm definitely not doing it for the money. I wish I could say that. But, if someone comes to me and says, I read your story and it meant a lot to me, and, that to me is worth, that's a pound of gold right there. So,
Oh, yes. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So, what about the craft of writing? Like when you sit down, do you just like let it flow? Are you like really meticulous about spelling and grammar and getting the scene exactly right? What's your system?
uh, usually when I'm creating, like, let's say a short story, I like to write notes on, like, a brainstorm, different ideas. I'm
Uh-huh.
more of a plot person rather than a character person. I
Hmm.
like to think of a story. I like stories with a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I know sometimes in literary fiction you won't see that. They're more character driven. They're mood. It's about feeling, and that's fine too. But my style is more dun dun dun. And once I figure out what I want to write, then I just pour the water, just go at it and pound it out. And I don't try to worry too much about spelling and grammar. Maybe a little bit, but not really that much. That's what editing's for after. And sometimes it's happened where I worry too much about a particular spelling of a word, and then what was I writing about? I had a great idea and I sort of missed it. So I think it's best to just kind of go, spill it out, and then worry about the fine points later.
I love it. I love it. And also, Richard, you're active in in the writing community in Winnipeg. Can you talk about the importance of networking and being in a writing community?
Well, I think the most important aspect about being part of a writing community is just the networking, and because you learn from other writers. The writing group that I'm part of, we call ourselves the Cattywampuses. Um, Now, cattywampus, you could Google the word. I forget exactly what it means. It's an actual English word. It's kind of goofy, but all the writers in my group, they are all basically published writers in some way, whether it's through novels, book of poems, newspaper writers, editors. They are all better writers than I am, and so I learn from that. I learn from when I present a piece and they critique, I learn from that. And by the same token, I get to critique their items because they learn from me. So it just builds. And that's the biggest thing you could do is to, I would say, join a writing group where you're able to just rattle off ideas and learn from that. On top of that, I'm also, I make sure to join all the different guilds and clubs and groups that are available to me. So,
Hmm.
the Writers Union of Canada, the Manitoba Writers Guild. I've joined those. And a lot of times you find out about different courses or programs or seminars where you could learn about different aspects of writing. Do I know everything? No. Who does, really? And so I think it's
Uh-huh.
important to attend different courses and, just that's how you meet new people. That's how you learn. you refine your craft a little bit more. It's just a wonderful thing. And I'm also on the board of directors for Prairie Fire, which is a local literary magazine that's been around for 40 years. And
Mm.
we publish a wide variety of fiction, poetry, nonfiction. And so once again, it's great learning from other people and the networking aspect also.
I love it. I love it. So, what's the most challenging thing you find about writing?
The most challenging thing. Well, it's not the writing actually. That's kind of easy. That's the easy part because you like doing it. Writers like writing. That's what we
Right.
do. It's
Yes.
basically all the other stuff. It's
Hmm.
getting published and just dealing with the industry. I think that is difficult, and it's because it's competitive out there, and money's tight, and it's not easy. It's not. I feel very fortunate that I was able to get my first novel published. I know there's many
Hmm.
writers that are dying, would give their kidney in order to publish a novel, and it's something that you know a lot. I as I said, I feel fortunate for that. Even my second novel, it may take a while before it gets published. So I think getting something published, learning the mechanics of the industry, that's probably the most difficult portion because writers themselves, they know how to write, they know what they're doing. It's all the other stuff after that gets a little bit more difficult.
Hmm. Hmm. So, what's the thing you love the most about writing?
I think I really like I, when I get a great idea and I start writing, and the words just, and I lose track of time. I lose track of time,
Yes.
and they're just, and before I know, it's like, oh my god, what?
Yes.
And then when I read something and it means something to me, that's it's very special. Then it's then I know, okay, I'm really, and it's important to write for yourself, not for other people. Write what you want to write. Write for yourself. And so when I'm writing a piece that I have an emotional attachment to, I think that's special. I like that.
Oh, that's awesome. It's so affirming when you do that. And it's just like, it's so, feels indulgent and it's awesome. And then when other people like it, it's just icing on the cake, right?
Oh, definitely.
So based on we've talked about your novels. So what about short story writing? How does that differ? And do you write a lot of short stories?
Uh, I do. I don't know how many I have in the can. There's actually short stories I've written that I've forgotten about that later on. Oh yeah, I wrote that. Um, I what I like to do is experiment with different voices, different styles, first person, second person, third person. Um, from the male perspective, from a female perspective, from a little boy's perspective. Even same time tomorrow, that's from an elderly person's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting
Mm-hmm.
there, but not quite. And so I really enjoy that. I even recently wrote a story about a rock, like basically literally a rock. You know,
Wow.
can't offend
That's
anybody by
awesome.
writing about a rock. So
No, right, right. So it was from the rock's point of view.
exactly, yeah.
That's brilliant. I love it. How fun is that?
So
That
yeah,
really,
I've written quite a few short stories. I do have one short story that's been published. It's called the story is called First Day Back, and it's in an anthology called Through My Eyes. And
oh, nice.
it's 74 true stories of survival, strength, and the power of believing.
Ooh, I love
So it's actually
that.
a true story that I wrote. And what's funny about that story is I originally wrote it as a stand-up piece. And what I mean by that is it was supposed to be a presentation where I would be on stage and it was like a storytelling sort of exercise.
Hmm.
And I thought, well, you know what? This story actually might fit in this anthology. And there you go, worked out. So
Wow, that's awesome. How exciting. Now, does your system for writing short stories differ at all from when you're writing longer fiction?
oh, definitely. Longer fiction, there's a lot more preparation that's involved, a lot more thinking about the plot, about the characters, about everything. A short story, you could get the basic idea of a short story just in a couple hours. You sit down, jot a few notes, and away you go. You could start writing. But for a longer piece, such as a novel, there's a lot of research that's involved. A lot of writers actually have to travel to different locales depending on where the story is taking place. There's a lot of things that are involved. In my opinion, at least in writing a novel, there's a lot more work.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas for a short story, I'm not saying that they're like frivolous or whatever, but it's a lot easier writing a short story than a novel, in my opinion.
Right. Right. So what are some other future dreams that you have about writing? Like maybe you want to write a screenplay or something like that?
Well, I know a long time ago, I want to say about 15 years ago or so. That's not that long. I actually wrote a script for a comic book, like to write,
Oh, wow.
So I teamed up with an artist and we sort of, hey, let's try this. But it's a very difficult profession. That's even harder to break into than just writing books and novels and short stories. So I haven't pursued that, but one day that's something that I might want to try again. I would say,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not, I don't really have an interest in screenplays for that matter, or plays or whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'd like to try that one day. But right now, just writing novels and short stories. That's scratching the itch at the moment.
So where do you think ideas come from, Richard? Do you think they're inspired by daily things we see and hear, or do they come from the ether? Where do they come from?
I think all of the above, really. Sometimes, well, as I've said before, sometimes they come from your past and your own experiences. Something that's resonated, you're able to transmit that into your story, whether it's nonfiction or fiction.
Mm-hmm.
Other times, it could be just something you've seen, some funny thing that's happened, or um, something you heard about in the news or watched on TV. Different ideas. Hey,
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't it be neat if that
Uh-huh.
sort of thing? So
Mm-hmm.
ideas. I know sometimes writers struggle with, I don't know what to write or whatever. What I've always done is you just sit down and just stream of consciousness, start writing notes down, and then eventually they start taking shape. And you might throw out 90% of those notes, but that 10% that sticks, you build on that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where a germ of a story comes out of.
I love that. I love that. You know what I noticed in your story, Same Time Tomorrow, is your dialogue is very crisp. So what's your secret to having it was like distinct of who's talking? What's your secret to writing great dialogue?
Well, thank you. I think what I try to do is I try to be a bit of an actor, if that makes any sense.
Yes.
I I speak out the lines and the words as if I'm that character, or both
Oh,
characters talking
uh-huh.
to see if it feels realistic or if that seems like something that would be said.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I try to keep dialogue short and snappy. I find that works better than long. Sometimes it's good to have a long piece, but usually short, snappy type dialogue. And the other thing is I try to keep the dialogue in character. Sometimes when I read works from other people, each character sounds the same, but it's important to have some words or phrases that are unique to that character depending on what their upbringing or background is. So in
Uh-huh.
my story, for example, it's an older gentleman. I made sure that he would use words that maybe an older gentleman would use to try to make
Uh-huh.
it seem authentic.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm. It's interesting that uh, on that point, when I was reading it, the story really could take place at any time in current recent history. But then you reference, oh, those kids are probably inside playing video games. So that lets you know the era of when the story is happening, at least over the past couple decades, where,
that's right.
yeah. So I thought that was really interesting. And I always, as a book coach, I always warn people, don't say someone warmed up their dinner in the microwave and it's
Yeah,
1955 because there was no microwave
yeah,
yet.
yeah. Or whipping out the cell phone when they shouldn't be, or yeah.
Right. It's really fun when you have to keep track of those things.
Well,
Um,
even for my first novel, like I said, it took place in the 19s, right?
Uh-huh.
There's a wedding scene within that novel. And I just assumed, okay, well, there's going to be a big reception. Maybe they'll have a live band, obviously. And I consulted with someone from the Manitoba Historical Society, and he basically said, you know what? Weddings weren't like that in those days. They were basically
Wow.
garden affairs. They were, some invited guests in maybe the bride's backyard, parents' backyard, and then right after the reception, they would whisk off to a train to go for their honeymoon in Niagara Falls or the mountains or wherever it would be, right?
Uh-huh.
So I had to keep things authentic. Okay, I've got to switch the scene, right? I got to change it around.
Wow, who knew, right? Wow, in this day and age of people, well, before COVID, inviting hundreds of people to their weddings. How
Yeah, yeah,
interesting.
exactly.
Wow, excellent. So, Richard, let's close on you offering any writing tips that you might have to those aspiring writers out there, whether they're doing short stories, research, dialogue, novels, whatever it is. Maybe 3 things you can share?
Sure. I've already mentioned that you should probably do something every day. Learning is very important. Don't sit on your laurels. Take courses, seminars, go to school, that sort of thing. Networking is important. Writing group. Read a lot of different genres. Don't just read one
Oh,
genre. Read
uh-huh.
different things. In my bio, sometimes I read everything from the hottest literary novel all the way to comic books, and that's true. You learn different things from different genres, so that's important to do that. And more importantly, write for yourself. Write what is important to you, because that's what you're going to get the most out of. There's not a lot of money to be made in writing. It's something that we do because we like doing it. We have something inside that needs to be told. And you better enjoy what you're writing because that's what it's all about.
I love that. That's powerful, powerful. Do you have a favorite quote about writing?
Do I have a favorite quote about writing? Well, I remember Stan Lee, who of course created many of these
Of
characters.
course, you're going to quote Stanley, okay?
Yeah, he said that the first million words that you write are all going to be crap. First million. It's after you get past the million, that's when the good stuff starts. And his point
What?
being, of course, that you have to practice your craft and you have to work at it. And you're going to stub your toe a lot of times and you're going to write garbage for the first several years, perhaps. But eventually, through that practice and diligence, you're going to get really good at it. So keep up at it. Keep up the good work, basically.
That is so fun. Oh my gosh. What does a million words look like? Do you remember that movie? Oh, what was it called? Where the letters, it was about the guy who took the drug that made his brain super strong and the letters were like dropping out of the air. Oh, what was it? Limitless.
Oh,
Limitless.
okay.
Did you see that movie? Well, the guy took some supersonic medication and he started writing and the it was a special effect and they had all these words just like floating in the air around him. But isn't that great? That's how it is when you're in your zone. The
That's
words
right.
are just
Yeah.
flowing. You don't know where they came from and you
Just
look
like
out.
in the Matrix, where he could see all the
Yes.
stuff, right?
Yes, it's so fun. You can create your own matrix. So, Richard, is there anything else you'd like to share today on Writer Talks?
Well, just thank you very much for inviting me. I love coming to this and look forward to doing more writing.
Yay. So, when you sell your novel, please let me know so you can come back and talk about that and let us all know when it's coming out and where people can buy it and all that good stuff. And I'll put a link to buy your first book in the description box. So if anybody's interested in buying your first novel, which looks fascinating, they can get it. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So thank you so much, Richard, for joining me here on Writer Talks this evening.
Thank you. Goodbye.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. And thank you all of you for joining us tonight, where you got to meet Richard Zaric, coming live from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, talking about his short stories, his novels, his writing craft, his writing rhythm, and all the success secrets that I hope you can apply to your own writing. I'm Elizabeth Ann Atkins, and here on Writer Talks, we interview the winners of our short story contests. And Richard's story, same time tomorrow, will be published in one of our upcoming international anthologies. So stay tuned. Meanwhile, please do like, share, subscribe, comment. We'd love to know what you thought about the interview and the writing tips. And meanwhile, you can also follow me on Twitter at Elizabeth Atkins, and follow Two Sisters at the number two Sisters Writing on Twitter. So happy reading, happy writing, and we'll see you next time.